Hi, welcome to Watch Me Sew as we watch me sew a little riding hood for my little girl. To start, this is a pattern from Stitch Upon a Time. You could just go to their website and find it as well and print it out for yourself if you'd like to try it out. It is a free pattern, so that is a big plus, especially to me. And one of the things I like to do when it comes to these print out patterns and all that is to transfer it over to tracing paper so I don't have to fumble around with extra sheets of paper, have to worry about reprinting everything and wasting my ink and all those little shenanigans. And also it's a little bit less time to spend on my knees to have to tape it all again. And pause for one of the most satisfying sounds ever. And on to the cutting part. And another benefit of transferring over to tracing paper and whatnot is the fact that it is all one sheet, so that just makes it easier to fold it up, put it away, and take it back out again, iron it out, and use it again for the next project, because I'm 99% sure I'm probably going to end up having to make another one of these in her size because, you know, toddlers, messes, all that fun shit to do. And I use regular tape when I tape these together, so at least I also don't have to worry about melted tape on my iron because I already have enough shit melted on there. On to the next cutting portion where we cut fabric instead of paper. The fabric I got is a fleece fabric for both the inner and the outer portions of the hood. In the pattern itself, it mentioned getting fleece for optimal warmth for the youngling that will be wearing it. I got this one, which is mermaids and unicorns and constellations, and I thought it was really freaking cute, fell in love with it, bought it. And I got a light pink fabric to kind of contrast but kind of go with it because the constellations themselves are light pink, and it turned out really freaking cute together. And continuing on, we just finished up cutting the cape portion. We're moving on to the hood portion. The cape is one big piece for the outer portion, one big piece for the inner portion, so one of each. The hood portion is two pieces, and you also have a little clasp, which not that piece, but I'm probably looking for it under my desk because I like to lose my shit. And the goblins like to collect it for tax. And I'm cutting out the last piece here, and soon enough we're going to be moving on to the inner lining. So here's my light pink inner lining, and I'm just getting started by pinning it so it can stay in one spot because I'm going to have to move my fabric because the pattern itself is wider than the space that I have available because I have absolutely no space whatsoever, but hey, what are you gonna do? So cutting the inner lining is very similar to cutting the outer lining, basically same gist, just a couple of extra things added on. And one of the things that you do not do, which we'll see here in a second, is that you don't do that. You don't need the pocket cut on the inner lining. Don't be like me. Don't make the same mistakes as I. Learn from me. Learn from me, guys. Moving on, we're going to finish up cutting up the inner lining. If I'm correct, this is one of the patterns that did not have a placement chart for the patterns itself. So basically just follow the arrows on the pattern, place it, and make sure you have room for everything. Thankfully, I had room for everything. I followed the directions on how much fleece I was going to need for it, and everything turned out to the proper measurements. I do have some scrap though, but I think that was because I did get extra because, you know, when they ask you, oh, do you want to finish off the bolt? It's going to be discounted. You're going to say yes. we're all gonna say yes, guys. Come on, don't lie to yourself. We all know this. So we're done with the cutting portion, folding up our shit, getting out of the way so we can make room for the sewing machine. First thing we're going to be sewing on is the pocket lining, and I already had the hole cut before I sewed it on. I think it would have been a hell of a lot easier to just have drawn it on, sew it on, and then cut it. So y'all can learn from my mistakes. I am following directions on the actual pattern itself. It's just that sometimes we just gotta go by trial and error and figure shit out on our own, you know? And this thing has 2 pockets, so I had to deal with my screw up twice and regret it twice as much. Hey, whatever, shit happens. So finishing up with the pocket lining, you have to snip down the middle and snip off of the edges of the first line itself, flip it inside out and stitch it again, and pinning it is a bitch too, so good luck. So we're started and finishing up the second pocket, and honestly my one main question is, what does a toddler need with pockets? And you'll see by the time this is done, these pockets are pretty well sized, so this toddler can put like whatever in her pocket. She already stole my dice to put in her pocket before, and now she's gonna be bringing home like acorns, rocks, and whatever the hell else with this on. And wow, it'll probably be entertaining at first. One of the main things I'm gonna have to tell my toddler is, don't throw them at your cousin. For the love of God, please don't throw them at your cousin. Parents of toddlers definitely understand where I'm coming from with this one. Next is to sew the hood together, and it doesn't matter which one you start off with. You can start off with the inner, you can start off with the outer. It's basically the same damn thing. And basically what you do is that you just take the 2 halves, you pin them together, then you sew along the curve, and boom, you're done with the hood portion. Which, explaining it takes a lot less time than actually doing it, which it happens, and in the end it actually ends up pretty worth it. To be perfectly honest, no matter how much I complain about any kind of sewing experience and over exaggerate and whatnot, in the end I'm actually really proud of most of the things that I make. There's some stuff from the early years that when I think about it, I cringe. When I look at it, I cringe even harder. And when I think, oh my god, it still exists, I want to burn it. But not this. This is actually one of the things I'm actually going to be proud of. And also, I probably won't be able to get it away from my kid long after she grows out of it. I'm probably going to have to make some in bigger sizes and just go from there to adjust her to not having it anymore one day. Now on to the next sewing portion. For this part, we're going to be sewing the hood onto the cape part of the riding hood. And first what we did was that we marked the center of the cape itself with a pin, and that makes it easier to line up the center seam on the hood with that center and then pin the hood together with the cape portion, as you see what I'm doing here now. And with that, we're able to more easily line everything up a little bit better ish. I don't know, it depends on how I cut it this time. Then once we have everything sewn together, we just throw it through the sewing machine and it's together. Yes, it's actually together. Okay, I know at some point I did run out of bobbin. I just don't remember where, but that is a huge break in itself because I can't wind the bobbin on this machine. I have to switch over to another machine because this is a lightweight machine. Most of the parts on it are plastic, and I'm 99% sure my kid was the culprit behind the bobbin winder getting broken off of this shitter. So we're gonna finish up with sewing the hood to the cape portion on the inner lining, and then we're gonna move on to the next part. I think I hate this part more than the pockets. It's the zipper. And with this pattern, you do have the choice for it being a zipper or being button snaps instead. I opted for the zipper. I just liked it better than doing the snaps, and maybe I'm a glutton for punishment since I do actually dislike installing zippers. That may have changed though with a project I did do recently though. I watched a YouTube video where somebody did it a lot better than this way, that's for sure. His name is Nifon, if I said that right. It's Ndifon space Ntui, and I watched one of his tutorials and found a much better way to install a zipper than what I am currently attempting, and shout out to him because holy crap, that was a hell of a lot better than this hot mess. And I would use the word hot very, very loosely, guys. So let's just finish up on hating myself and get past this zipper shit, can we? And to add on to the shit that I did wrong, when you're finishing up the zipper, it does have a portion where it tells you how to finish up a zipper longer than what you needed. And don't be like me and wait till the end and then jump to the page now. Finish up the zipper correctly. I did not finish up the zipper correctly. Thankfully it didn't screw up the entire thing, but don't be like me. Make your life a lot more easier than I like to do for myself, you know? What I will say though is that what it says is that you're supposed to measure out where your zipper is supposed to stop at, pull out some teeth, add the zipper stoppers, which I did not have before, so I had to go and order those, and then do the trim and finish up the zipper like that. Don't be like me. Moving on, we're gonna start sewing the two pieces together, and we're gonna be doing this along the outside edges, leaving the bottom edge alone, so that you will have the hood and the sides where the zipper was at completely sewn together at this time. So just go through, do a lot of stitching. This is one of the fun parts where you're just sitting there like just getting into the groove, getting into the beat of your machine until you're completely done with that long stitch. It's one of the parts that I do like. Once you're done with that outer edge, you're going to go and move on to that bottom edge. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take about 4 inches of length in the center of that bottom edge and mark it off, pin it down, and then you're going to start stitching that bottom edge closed except for that gap that you have created. I did start stitching, had to pause briefly. I think this is around the time where my bobbin ran out, but I clipped the part where I was getting it refilled out. Y'all don't need to see me do that. And so I did have to stop briefly, repin the other half because my stuff was all wonky for some reason. And it's probably because I probably trimmed it wrong or some shit like that. I don't fucking know. And we're gonna finish up with sewing up that bottom edge, making sure to keep that gap open because you're gonna need that gap to turn this thing around. You're gonna flip, turn it upside down just like the Fresh Prince, guys. Come on. I laugh at my own jokes. You guys probably don't. I'm not sure, but we're gonna move on. And once I'm done sewing this and making sure I don't screw anything up again-ish, you're gonna want to trim that bottom edge. And once you're done trimming the bottom edge, that's when you get to flip, turn it around. So just watch me cut, cut, cut. Now you reach in there like you're grabbing your kid's toy out from underneath the seat of the car because they dropped it and they're crying and they won't stop unless they have it back. And you flip, turn it around until the right sides are facing out again. Once we're done flip turning it around, we're just gonna sew that entire bottom seam and just finish up that bottom right there. Once we're done finishing the bottom seam, we're going to go ahead and go back over where the zipper is and make sure that fucker really stays in place. And now we're gonna finish the pockets up, and how we're gonna do that is I'm gonna lay it flat, and it does give you a diagram on how it's supposed to look like. And what I found easiest was that I just took a pencil, drew out the line that I needed, and then just threw it under the sewing machine, stitched that line in, and closed up those pockets how they're supposed to be. Next we have our button closure flap, which all we gotta do is just pin it together, sew it together, you know, when my sewing machine decides to finally behave itself, and trim it a little bit before you flip it around to make those seams a little bit more better. Once we finish doing that, we can now attach the flap at the top of the zipper to make sure the zipper stays closed, because we all know toddlers and their liking of undoing their zippers at the worst time. Once you're done with the snap flap, then you can move on and mark where you're going to be putting your snaps at. I put one at the top of the zipper, and then you also have the option of putting them at the wrist. In the directions, it does have a measurement for whichever size that you're doing, so just go to the directions and check that out. And now we get to place the snaps and beat them into submission. Here's another opportunity for you guys to learn from my mistakes. Make sure you have the snaps properly placed and properly lined up before you start hammering away. I didn't do this on one of the snaps, and thankfully it was just as easy as taking a couple of my pliers and tearing those fuckers apart, but for the most part it probably wouldn't have been that easy on any other regular day. So don't be like me and make sure your snaps are properly lined up. And here's me doing the zipper absolutely last. Don't be like me, don't do this last. And now we're done. She loves it because it's super cute, super warm, and super fun to be in. And I love it because I'm able to put her into a car seat safely with this on and still keep her warm in the process. I'd like to thank anybody who actually stuck around this long and actually watched me this long. And hopefully I get to see you guys next time with the next project. Bye!